This is so bad. It's so bad.
So that's a CG car?
That's a CG car.
Wow. It's not CG, right?
Well, it's kind of CG.
Kind of CG. My favorite kind of CG. Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Visual Effects Artists React. We have some really awesome clips for you guys today. Ren, how's it going?
Hot dog!
Hot dog!
We're gonna be looking at some old movies, some bike scenes that make you scratch your head a little bit, but more so, we're just gonna have a good time, and I hope you do too, so let's get into it.
So the new Lord of the Rings movie has just dropped.
Well, okay, not a movie, it's a show, and the show isn't out yet. It's coming out in September, I believe. The intro to the show just dropped, and it's a CG wonderfest. Look at all these amazing renders.
That looks excellent.
Like all the little particles, sparky details coming off, catching the light in great ways. The water, though, I think the resolution on the simulation for the water could be better.
I know where you're going with this, Ren.
Yeah, I think you both know where I'm going with this.
I know where you're going with this. None of that's CG. Actually, take it back. There's a little bit of CG, but the vast majority of that was all real, right?
That is correct.
The water is real?
The water is real.
The smoke is real? That's real metal? Good God. Is that 100% real, even the Amazon logo?
Well, they actually poured real molten metal down it and poured real water across it with a bunch of steam and all of that.
That's cool.
And they had a robot arm holding a Phantom Flex 4K to be able to quickly go whoop, to get those sort of sweet slow motion shots, and that's
Super
why
cool.
it looks CG.
This is actually how they film a lot of food, by the way, with the same robot-controlled Phantom cameras. I do think some of the water was comped a little bit.
No, I don't think so. I think the water is real.
No, I think it's real for a lot of it. I think it was comped a little bit in a few of the shots.
Oh.
I'm not quite sure exactly what they're doing, but my digital artifacts detector is going off somehow.
They could have totally just done that in two separate passes. They have a robot arm that can repeat the same move over and over and over again. So in that situation, maybe they had something where they have the metal, it's still kind of hot, they do their take for the exposure of the metal, they'd probably have to bring up the exposure a little bit, but then the water would be too bright. So they do another pass where they have the water go over it with the exposure slightly lower, and then they're just kind of combining the two shots in post. This is speculation, we do not know.
I think it's totally reasonable. If you have a motion control rig, you can totally blend some shots. And there's probably a little bit of that going on, especially with the N one with the logo reveal.
Yeah, there's a CG
you
smoke
can
swirl.
see how there's smoke that's going in two opposite directions over itself.
It's all CG smoke. And that's CG smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
there's
that's CG.
definitely a lot of CG smoke, at least in that transition. We always say that the best looking visual effects shots are the ones that combine practical with CG, because purely CG can sometimes look pretty good, but purely practical usually isn't quite enough. And I think what they found here is that they have this really sweet transition here, and it's not quite working unless they add in some of that smoke. In fact, you can totally see it fade out right there in the middle as the camera's pulling back.
It looks really good.
It looks amazing. But it goes back to the media always loves to say something is not using any CG, and that's rarely ever the case. Even in this example where the headline is straight up, they did it all practically, and it's true. But they did supplement it with additional VFX. At the end of the day, it's a super dope looking shot, and it makes me want to do an entire themed episode around show intros. So leave a comment down below with intros you'd like us to look at.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So speaking of stuff done in camera completely practically, let's take a look at this shot real quick.
Wait. Just sorry, before you play. Do you remember the Stuntman React episode where we watched Steven Seagal and Mike Tyson fight? I already know what shot this is. This is right before that happens.
That is a really funny fight scene.
Yep, same movie. This is literally just before it happens.
Wait a second, we're not.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
This face comped onto the helmet, because the audience needs to understand that Steven Seagal is the one who's driving up to the arms deal that's happening.
This is so bad. It's so bad. Why is it bad though? That's the question.
To the VFX artists that did the shot, We're sorry you had to do this shot.
Yeah.
We know that someone told you that you need to put Steven Seagal's face in this helmet. And you're like, that doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't be able to see his face. Like, you can't see the guy's face in the helmet already, right? And they gave you probably like a stock photo. And you went to town, you did your best.
But like, so through the shot, we can see that there's no parallax change on his face. So it is definitely just a 2D image and likely literally just a JPEG. It literally looks like it's a sticker stuck on top of his face as opposed to any sort of depth inside.
You can see that the skin, his skin in the helmet is brighter than the skin on his arm in direct sunlight. Physically, you wouldn't be able to see a face like that through the helmet, so the moment that's what you're trying to do is the moment the shot breaks.
Also, I just realized the helmet is like back. Like his face is jutting out of the front of the helmet because the padding goes down your temple. Like it's right next to your eyes. And yet we can see his sideburns and ear.
You can see his ear.
His face is literally the size of his
This
fist.
is what I'm saying. His head is very small.
He bought a helmet that's too big for him.
How does he do this? Like, how does he make
He got
money?
hired. He got paid a boatload because Steven Seagal doesn't lose in his fights. It's like part of his contract. But they're like, we're in China, you can't sue us. And so he loses in his fight here. But you can clearly tell they filmed with someone else that wasn't Steven Seagal at the end of his fight scene.
They'll be like, great, and then the fight ends. And then he leaves set and I'm like, all right, get the double out, beat his ass.
That's exactly how it went. Yeah, that's exactly how it went.
Motherfucker, you drink piss.
All right, so you got an actor and you have a motorcycle and you want to pretend that an actor's riding a motorcycle. We have some top-notch ILM effects here.
Ooh.
This is the new
Oh,
James
man,
Bond
I was-
movie, but there's a lot of really great visual effects that is very well done and deceptive. For most of the stuff, it's like half CG, and it's like the weirdest stuff that's CG.
So cool.
Look at that.
So that's the CG car?
That's a CG car.
Wow. It looks great. The bump, right when it bumps, is the only time it looks a little fake. So you see how there's direct sunlight that is being covered by shadow, like the soft shadow? So that soft shadow wouldn't be darkening direct sunlight like that. It just would not look like that. But it's on the bottom of the frame. You're not even looking at that, you're looking at the car. But that weird kind of softness of that shadow and how it's not interacting correctly with the ground, that's what triggers my CG alarm when I look at it closely. But beyond that, like, the motion's great and the rendering's really solid on the car itself.
But I think this entire shot is CG. ILM basically, they do photo scans of every location they're going through. They take cars with an array of red cameras and just like roll them up and down the streets to get HDRIs for every single area they're filming in. And you know, you look at that shot there, it's like the motion of the car, it's like, obviously you don't want to do that with a real person there. So either A, do you run the car over it and put a CG person in, or do you put a real person in and put a CG car there? But then if the car is going to be CG, then you don't want to film a practical shot for it, really, because who knows what the movement's going to end up looking like.
So I think what we're seeing here is a photo scan of the actual road and the bridge there, and the background where you're seeing is probably just a 2D plate projected onto some geometry inside of Nuke for the background, and then a CG Daniel Craig and a CG car. Yep. So most of the shot we're seeing here is completely rendered.
Yeah.
Whoa!
Oh, wow.
Whoa, right?
Oh. Wait, hold up. So I think I remember seeing something about this motorcycle jump being an actual real stunt.
It's totally real.
Oh, sick.
Did they paint out the ramp?
Yes, so there was a more clearly built ramp, basically, that was there, and they just replaced the ramp with the stonework.
Gotcha.
And then
Okay,
obviously-
that makes sense to me then, because it's like you wouldn't be able to actually do a proper jump like this on stone.
Yeah, and
This is feeling a little GTA. I think it speaks to the idea that if something feels impossible, I think we just tend to assume that it is impossible and therefore faked.
I think the reason for me it felt CG, or I questioned it, was honestly the camera angle. So we're watching this whole motorcycle sequence, and we're doing face replacements already. We're getting like shots right close up to the camera. And in this shot, it was like this very like wide, slow moving, like CG-esque movement of this huge stunt when like we already know they have the tools available to like fully replace the head, fully replace the whole area. It's like, why not get something that like is a little more in your face or with the action a little more, so that way it doesn't make us immediately go, oh, they could have faked that. It's a fantastic stunt. Like, it really is at the level you expect, you know, when you watch a film like this. So how many of these sheep do you think are real?
Oh,
No
we're
way.
talking about CG sheep?
No
I'm joking.
way.
I'm just messing.
Okay. The cars in a lot of these shots are just 100% CG because we got really good CG cars a while ago, and they're just getting better every year.
They replaced the roads in basically every shot of the cars driving.
Really?
Because
What?
they were doing multiple takes, and so they're getting skid marks everywhere. And so basically every shot of the cars driving anywhere is a CG road. It's a CG road.
Man, they're doing the glass hits properly. We talked about how they're just like images tracked in on the Matrix train, but here they're actually catching light properly.
Yep. The good actual refraction is happening.
Yeah, like
They're
when you
actual
get the
three-dimensional objects.
yeah.
Even though glass is thin, it's still three-dimensional. You know, there's still depth to it, and when a crack happens, you need to do more than just take glassShatter01.jpg and set it to screen mode.
What I'm seeing here, the reason why it's 3D is that you have essentially an actual strip that is perpendicular to the window and it's sitting inside the window. And that strip itself is reflecting light from the sun into the camera. It's actually catching the highlights differently than just a 2D image tracked in, which you can clearly see in the Matrix Resurrections.
There's a really good example on the far left. The farthest left bullet hole, there's a circular strip. And if you look, the part of the strip that's kind of facing us is like wide and white. You can see the line really wide. Then as the strip comes around and it becomes edge on to us, it turns into just a tiny little thin line.
Because that's exactly, so those strips, you know, they're perpendicular to the window, they're inside the window. Those strips can reflect light, but when you look at them side, they're now perfectly flat. You can't see them. And you're totally right. We are
you have
seeing that
perspective.
here.
You actually have perspective in your cracks.
Oh, can I tell you the one last fun fact about the whole thing?
No. Moving on.
Generally speaking, with the show, we try to stick to things that we know. We know visual effects, we know some filmmaking, we got some ideas of how stunts work to some degree, right? So we took a look at the Book of Boba Fett, and we definitely went out of our lane to talk about our opinions about things that weren't VFX related.
Is this some that Robert Rodriguez up?
So if you want to see some of those hot takes, it's on the website since we don't want to make anybody sad on YouTube. And so if you want to check it out, you can check it out there.
Did you guys see the movie Hook back in the day?
I love Hook.
Hook is great. Hook is an amazing movie.
Everybody's like, Hook is Spielberg's worst movie. And it's like, what?
What? Who
Yeah.
says that?
It's fantastic. I rewatched
Bitter
it.
people.
Bitter people.
Bitter People. It's about Robin Williams becoming a child. Or, yeah. This movie, all I remember, fantastic set design, great cast, cool story, lots of fun, zany action scenes that, as a child, I was like, I'm going to Burger King and I'm gonna get all these Hook toys.
So in the movie, Robin Williams plays Peter Pan, and he's lost his imagination, he's lost his happy thoughts, so he loses his ability to fly until this point in the movie when he does get those happy thoughts back and he takes off into the sky and flies to the island. Flying across the clouds. Look at his shadow on those clouds.
I wonder how they're
And
doing
then-
the clouds.
Ooh!
Ooh, that looks nice.
Oh my God,
Wow.
that matte painting looks so good.
It's not CG, right?
Well, it's kind of CG.
Kind of CG. My favorite kind of CG.
Basically, the matte painting artist Usagi. For once, I'm actually trying to say a name correctly.
You say Usagi.
But he's the matte painting artist on this, and he made a giant piece of artwork of the island here. But what they did was something new in visual effects. Remember, this is 1991. They projection mapped that onto 3D geometry so that they could do a 3D camera move.
Cool.
And that's like, I love projection mapping. And projection mapping is the idea of like you have an image from a projector, right? It's this 2D image that just goes outwards and hits whatever you see. And then from there, you can then move and see it from different perspectives. You know those chalk drawings you see that are only really images from a certain perspective? That is essentially projection mapping. And so what they're doing here is they have this incredible artwork that's done, and they're just projecting that onto rudimentary geometry so that as the camera moves, you get a certain amount of parallax within the image so it becomes more 3D looking.
You know, I hope that someone has that matte painting in their home and it's not just sitting in a closet gathering dust, because seeing like how big that thing is and how vibrant it looks, it's just like, who wouldn't want to look at that every day?
Now, I got that info from Ian. Again, VFX Befores and Afters, amazing resource. But the thing that I found even more interesting than that were the clouds.
Yeah, the clouds look really good.
The clouds are amazingly well done. The clouds are real practical elements shot with Go Motion. What is Go Motion? We've talked about it before. It is stop motion, but every time they hit the shutter button to take the stop motion photo, the rig actually moves a little bit to get the motion blur. Stop motion famously lacks motion blur, but Go Motion, hence the Go, they're recording the shots as it moves. So we're getting the clouds, which are just big cotton balls.
Yeah, cotton balls.
Tons and tons of passes of cotton balls with the Go Motion rig going on. But the thing that blew my mind was the CG shadow of Robin Williams on the clouds. You can see the shadow hitting this cloud, then dipping down to the cloud below it, and then rising back up to the cloud above that.
I wonder if that's the blue screen element. It's also projection mapped onto geometry, and then they're just doing noise distortion on the geometry to match the clouds.
That would be the way I would try to do it.
That'd be pretty
Yeah.
effective. Like they already got their PC loaded up with some 3D models, so it's like
They just press a button and it's done. This is an example of a shot that took a tremendous amount of attention to detail. Having that shadow and the real cotton clouds there is really what brings the shot together and makes it feel real as you're watching it.
Hey, pro tip for all you people with small screens. If you scroll down, there's a subscribe button. Maybe you missed it. Just letting you know.
look, I don't care if you subscribe, I don't care if you're dinging that bell. Just if you like the show, come back. We have another episode next Saturday.
We have never missed a weekend. Every Saturday since the show started. Actually, the first episode went up, and then we missed one weekend, and then from that point on, we never missed a
Well, it's
weekend.
because we needed a week to kind of realize, wait a minute,
Yeah.
this is a thing. Let's keep doing it.
So we needed a week to invent our most popular show real quick.
Wait, Zach, hold on, Zach. Before you stop the video, remember, tomorrow we also have another awesome video coming out, so check back on our channel then.
Yeah, see you then, Zach.